Welcome back, everyone. This is Hutch from Hutch High Perf, and we are right back on the project. So now it's cylinder heads. Before I can get the cylinder head on, I need to make sure that we have a nice, clean mating surface. So I want to get any residual oil that may have gathered on this off. All right, first things first. I'm using Cometic gaskets. They say you can put them on dry, don't need any type of sealant or anything. I don't know. I always feel like, at least around these water jackets, and we're not talking much, but around the water jackets, I like to put just a little bit, just to make sure. We're talking very little. Just enough that I feel like they're going to seal up on me. Again, you ask Cometic, and they say don't do what I'm doing. So, don't do what I'm doing. I'm certainly going to do it. So a lot of people, this Cometic gasket, by the way, it's multi-shimmed gasket with like a silicone-based type outer layer on both sides. So there's a lot of talk. People will say, well, the Cometic gaskets are reusable. Yes and no. If I bolt the head onto this and torque it down the spec, and I never run the engine and it never heat cycles, I can reuse this gasket. But once it heat cycles a bunch of times, see these things, the steel in them, the way they're made, the several layers, they're sprung almost. They're like twisted a little bit. It's adds some of the tension to it. Well, once you go through a couple of heat cycles, that tension kind of goes away and you can't reuse the gasket then. So, something to know. All right, we'll get one bolt in here started. So our head doesn't go flying off and hitting the ground. Edelbrock RPM aluminum cylinder heads. I like those things. ARP chromoly head bolts. Now you're wondering, why do you paint it silver? Well, if you'll notice, all the other hardware on the car is this stainless steel, goes on the engine, but the head bolts, ARP sells stainless hex head bolts. The chromoly ones are $85 for a set. The stainless are $155. So I found, like right here, okay, you can tell they're not exactly the same. But I found this high heat exhaust manifold paint, and I painted the end of the head bolts and I baked them to get the finish to kind of be a little bit more secure. So from close up, but from here, I don't know. Looks close enough to me. So the ones up here that are going inside the head, no need to paint those. But I did paint the ones that are out here on the outside just to kind of follow that same theme because I'm cheap. So anyway, I have to take all of these. If you remember the same lubricant that ARP has you put on the main and rod bolts, everything. Same thing for this. So I've got to lube everything up and then torque them in series until I hit 70 foot-pounds. So Let me get it's going to take a minute. So I'm going to get all this stuff lubed up and then we'll drop it in and torque it in place. Oh yeah, almost forgot. See that bevel on the washer? Other side is flat. Bevel. Bevel side has to be toward the head of the bolt. So it leaves a little room for I guess the shank end at the just the very end of the head of the bolt. If you put them in the wrong way, the bolt can break. Definitely going to void the warranty, and ARP is not going to stand behind it. So make sure you get that right. So if you didn't have the proper torque sequence for tightening a head down, a good rule of thumb, this is if you don't have anything. Good rule of thumb is if you go in an outward circle, you're going to be right in the ballpark. So if we didn't have anything, I would start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then do that two more times until I got to my final torque reading, and it'd be good to go. Oldsmobile in the book, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's how we're going to torque this down. And it's 70 foot-pounds is what is recommended from ARP, and we're going to do that in 3 stages. I'm going to start with 30 and work my way around. Now, I read this on a forum, and I'm curious to see if it works. They said for painted bolts, when you go to torque them down or tighten them, if you want to try to eliminate chipping, take a sandwich bag and put over top of your bolt, and it gives it just a little bit of a cushion, and you don't mess up the paint. Huh? Maybe. We'll see. We'll see once it's done and I clean everything off whether this is actually going to work. So that was 30. Now we'll go to 50. And then final torque is 70. All right. This is going to get a little bit tougher here. Final torque, 70. See if we can handle that. Last one. All right, well that's both heads on. I don't know if the plastic's anything or not, to tell you the truth. There is a little bit of flaking on a couple of them. From right there, you can't see. I think it looks good. There's a couple of spots though, but I don't know. Would it have been worse without the plastic? I don't know, honestly. Anyway, let's roll this thing around and I'm going to talk about rocker arm geometry and pushrod length. First thing I need to do is I need to get the camshaft down onto the base circle, or what some call the heel of the cam. So if you're familiar at all with it, you've got the cam, which looks something like that, right? So this is your lift, and this is the base circle of the cam. We need to get the the lobe on the base circle side, so we're not dealing with any lift at all. So I'm just going to use the #1 cylinder. I'm going to turn this thing around until I can get myself to the base circle of the cam. There, that is good. This is a hydraulic roller. So on the end, you have these roller balls. So in order to keep these from turning sideways, which then they wouldn't roll, they would just dig right into the cam, they've got to be held in a certain position, and that's what this bar is for. So we're going to throw these right down into the lifter bores. All right. So this is what is this from? This is from Comp Cams, number 7902, and it is a push rod length checker. These come with 2 nuts on the end that aren't big enough to get past the plate at the top here. So I just took them completely off, and the threads are actually stiff enough that I don't think I'm going to have an issue with this thing. So, oops. How about I put it on the right cylinder here? Right lifter. Okay. So that is in the lifter. Let me get this turned around and I'll show you the rocker arm part of it. So this is our rocker arm. So you've got the trunnion and you've got the small roller at the end. And the trunnion, there's only one way for this to go on. You can see this is the bottom side. This is the top side because it actually has, see that? Has a place for your nut to go into to have a flat surface. So it only goes on one way. What you're trying to do, you draw a center line in between your trunnion and the small roller, and that's your center line for where you want the rocker to sit. So what you're looking for, so we screw this down. Get that in there. All right. So you want 90 degrees to your valve. All right, so that is your valve head. So we want to loosen this up a little bit until we have this right at the same angle as that. That's about right. Okay, so this is our starting point as far as the nut. Now, what we need is for this rocker to be that same 90 degrees to the valve stem head when it's at half of the lift of the cam. All right, because this is rolling slightly forward and backward. This is exaggerated, but this is what it's doing as it's rolling, as it's compressing the spring and the spring is coming back up. This is rolling just slightly forward and slightly backward across the center of that valve tip. So halfway down, which is about half of your lift, you want that to be at 90 degrees. So it's optimal for both directions. So I have to move the camera again. Anyway, so now that we have this is our baseline. This is where we're going to start. All the adjustments will come from this point because now we've established 90 degrees, not accounting for lift. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually tighten this down until we have half of what our lift is. And I'll explain that in just a sec. All right, so now we've established our baseline. Let me throw this right on here. That way we can keep track of the number of turns. All right. That is the top. All right, so here's the basic gist of it. So with it adjusted right where it's at, this is going to be at a nice 90-degree angle. What happens is as you tighten this down, it moves this down and then your angle goes upwards. But what happens is when the cam gets halfway through its lift, the front of this is going to come down, compress the spring, and you'll be back to your 90 degrees. We just need to get there. Here's how we do that. The camshaft on this engine is 555, 560. So, you know, like I've always said, what's 5 thousandths between friends? So we're going to go with the 560 lift mark, and half of that is going to be 280 thousandths. So the stud that's holding this on is 7/16, and it's 20 threads per inch, which ends up being 50 thousandths for one full rotation. So we know that we're going 280, so we're just going to turn. So that's 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 275, half of 50, 25, and then right about there, we'll call that our 280 mark. So with the rocker like that, we're going to take our push rod, push that up to hold it in, and then we're going to do our adjustment down here, and all I'm doing is unthreading the push rod until it meets the lifter in the bore. And then what we're looking for is for zero lash, or just basically it's very tight. There's hardly any movement. All right. Okay, so now we've got a correct rocker geometry. I've got zero lash on my push rod, so now I can loosen this up. And then if I'm careful, just pull this out. There we go. Measure that, and that is our push rod length. So that measurement comes out to 9.157, which is perfect. Most push rod manufacturers make their push rods every 50 thousandths. So 9.150 is what we're going to end up with. I already did this measurement because daggone it takes so long to get parts sometimes. I didn't want to wait until I actually got around to filming it to be able to get the stupid box of push rods. So I have them. I did the measurement a while ago, put the order in, and waited, and got my parts. So that's good to go. Well, that's it for this one. Heads are on, rocker geometry checked, push rods ordered. That stuff's all good. We're getting real close to getting it in the car. It's exciting. Looking forward to that. Anyway, so that's all I got. Somewhere down there's a super thanks. That would be cool if you kick a little bit that way. If not, go to the t-shirt shop, find something you like. Money goes back into the project, which is all good for me. And so I'm very thankful for anything you can do. Anyway, that's it. So this is Hutch from Hutch High Perf. See you later.